It was Thanksgiving weekend. A call goes out from Robert Wagner. Someone is missing from their boat. 6 hours later, the body of his wife, Natalie Wood, was found floating in the Pacific Ocean.
At the time of the incident, her death was ruled an accident.
Natalie Wood had spectacular Hollywood fame. America really fell in love with her.
Recently, we have received information substantial enough to make us take another look at this case.
Officials now say that Natalie Wood's death in 1981 may not have been an accident.
Changing the death certificate to undetermined is huge. The only statute of limitation that hasn't expired is murder.
The real mystery here was, how did Natalie Wood end up in the water?
I believe that Robert Wagner was with her up until the moment she went into the water.
Now I'm going to play for you what Natalie's sister told me about the call that she got from Dennis DeVerne.
Dennis panicked and RJ said, leave her there, teach her a lesson.
My name's Sam Kashner, and I write for Vanity Fair magazine.
Lana Turner, this blonde bombshell, this great icon of a movie star, fell in love with this mobster named Johnny Stompanato. And they had a passionate affair, and then he started beating her up, and he just would not leave her alone. They started having this terrible, terrible argument, and her daughter was listening to this.
I just turned 14. I run down the stairs. There's a knife on the counter. I picked it up, ran back up the stairs.
What still mystifies me is the fact that there was not one speck of blood in the room. My name is Patricia Bosworth. I've been writing for Vanity Fair for 14 years.
I remember when I first heard this story, I thought it's doubtful that it's true.
Miranda Grosvenor was a girl who could make any man on the planet fall in love with her over the phone.
She had hundreds, if not thousands, of these conversations with men who wanted to meet her. Major Hollywood actors, directors, rock stars. Billy Joel said, some nights she was my only friend. For a lot of these men, she was clearly an addiction. The catch here was who she really was. That was the real mystery.
Hi, Brian, it's Miranda.
I'm Brian Burra. I'm a special correspondent at Vanity Fair.
Tonight,
And then he said, here's the police report, but you can't make a copy of it.
3 of Vanity Fair's most celebrated authors
I went up to my room and read the whole police report to a tape recorder.
shared their stories
That's better than taking notes in the bathroom like I usually do.
of some of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries.
Billy Joel was calling Miranda and playing these songs for her that she would tape on her answering machine.
At the corner of Hollywood and noir, a special edition. Vanity Fair, Hollywood Scandal.
This is the Splendor, needs help. With those words, 51-year-old actor Robert Wagner and Dennis DeVerne, the captain of the Splendor, sounded the alarm. It was a difficult assignment. The sea captain of the Splendor wants to tell his story of the night Natalie Wood died, and one completely different than what he told the police.
I just didn't want my whole life to go by without having the truth come out.
Rumors of foul play have circulated ever since Natalie Wood drowned off the coast of California's Catalina Island. But no one could have predicted this.
On the weekend of November 29th, 1981,
30 years after Natalie Wood died, the LA County Sheriff's Department made a stunning announcement. It was reopening the investigation into the actress's death.
we have received information which we felt was substantial enough to make us take another look at this case.
Then in July, another major development. The coroner changed Wood's cause of death from an accident to undetermined.
After 30 years, to change the death certificate classification on the death of this major movie star, that's a really mammoth development. The only possible statute of limitation that hasn't expired is murder. So I think you can draw your own conclusions.
10 months in, the homicide detectives are still in the thick of a major investigation.
Ron, can you come over here for a minute?
Interviewing witnesses, following leads, determined to find out what truly happened aboard the Splendor.
The end game is to find out what occurred. That is the end game of any investigation.
The coroner's autopsy indicated Miss Wood had died by accident. She attempted to board this rubber dinghy. It was here that she fell and drowned.
That story is 100% false. Natalie would never in a million years take that dinghy out by herself. She was deathly afraid of the water.
Dennis Davern was a member of their family. He was both a bodyguard and a confidant of Natalie's. Through the years, Davern has been accused of exploiting that relationship. He tried to sell his story and collaborated on a tell-all book, but he insists he did it for Natalie.
What I really wanted is to give Natalie a voice.
The glamorous Natalie Wood and Frank Sinatra were quite a twosome with it.
Natalie Wood was one of the biggest film stars imaginable. She was America's sweetheart.
Well, young lady, what's your name?
Susan Walker, what's yours?
She was the little doubting girl in Miracle on 34th Street. And then she was running with the sort of troubled pack and Rebel Without a Cause.
I'm not going back in that zoo.
I'm never going back.
She was in West Side Story, Splendor in the Grass.
I am Gypsy Rose Lee.
And Gypsy. Robert Wagner was a beautiful young cat, kind of old Hollywood.
This is my boss.
And he really found his métier on television in Heart to Heart. The Wagner-Wood love story was one of the great Hollywood love stories.
They really felt that they were the loves of each other's lives. They were extremely devoted to each other. It's just tragedy that this marriage was ended the way it was with her death.
We departed Marina del Rey, and there was Natalie Wood, Robert Wagner, Christopher Walken, and myself on board.
As soon as Chris Walken walked up the gangplank to the Splendor in his pea coat with the collar turned up, Robert Wagner took an instant dislike to him. Ow! Chris was fresh off winning the Academy Award for The Deer Hunter.
You could see a little bit of jealousy from Robert Wagner. It just kept getting more tense.
There was just a volcanic amount of alcohol consumed. The weekend goes from bad to worse.
Christopher and Natalie went ashore to the restaurant, had a few drinks. RJ and myself, we went in later. When RJ saw Natalie and Christopher sitting at the bar laughing and having a wonderful time, he started to really heat up. We go back to the boat. Natalie and Christopher continued to giggle, just having fun. And then Robert Wagner, out of the clear blue, picked up the bottle of wine and smashed it right on the coffee table. RJ said to Christopher, "What are you trying to do? F my wife?" Natalie went down below. Christopher went into his stateroom. Then RJ went into Natalie and RJ's room and started arguing, yelling, things being thrown about. And then the fighting went back to the back of the boat. And then it was quiet. When I had gone down below, Natalie wasn't there. And he says, "You must search the boat to see where Natalie is." She wasn't anywhere. The dinghy was gone. I said to Robert Wagner, maybe I should turn on the searchlight. He said, "Don't do that."
On a nearby yacht, 3 people claim they heard cries for help sometime after 11. One of them was Marilyn Wayne.
I heard a woman calling for help. "Help me, somebody, please help me, I'm drowning." We called Harbor Patrol several times. No one ever answered. At 11:25, call for help ceased. That was the beginning of the nightmare.
They found her floating in the water, wearing a red down jacket, socks, and a flannel nightgown, in a way almost as if she was standing up in the water. It was a Sunday morning. When I picked up the phone, it was RJ, and he just screamed into the phone, "She's gone." 27 years later, on the CBS broadcast Sunday Morning, Robert Wagner described that loss.
We were so in love, and we had everything, and in a second it was gone. I wasn't there. I wasn't there for her. And that's always within me.
After a 2-week investigation, Natalie Wood's death was ruled an accident. But the new detectives, Kevin Lowe and Ralph Hernandez, are searching for answers to some troubling questions. Like, why did it take Robert Wagner so long to radio for help?
The first call isn't made until 1:30 in the morning. That's 2.5 hours between the time that someone is heard screaming in the water.
Suzanne Finstad, author of Natasha, the biography of Natalie Wood, says it took another 2 hours after 3 a.m. for someone to call the Coast Guard.
She had a lifelong fear that she would die in dark water. And then to be in the circumstance that is her greatest horror, it's just beyond imagining.
The local Baywatch rescue boat captain on duty, Roger Smith, says he wasn't called until after 5 in the morning, 6 hours after Natalie went into the water.
I think she was at least alive for 3 of the hours, hanging on that skiff.
Smith brought Natalie's body to shore. He says rigor mortis had not yet set in, and believes the decision to wait so long before calling for help cost Natalie Wood her life.
With our equipment and everything in our expertise, we would have found her. She would still be alive today. I'm still having a problem with it, 30 years later.
At that time, there was no sign of foul play in my mind.
The original detective assigned to the case, Dwayne Razier, stands by his investigation. He claims Davern and Wagner, interviewed in the freshness of time, told the same story.
Natalie went to go to bed. Robert Wagner, he went to check, and they found her missing.
Davern now says he lied to Razier, claiming Robert Wagner concocted a story and ordered him to stick to it.
Robert Wagner was very serious about having the stories being the same, to eliminate any investigation.
Remember that broken bottle? The one Davern claims Wagner broke in a fit of jealousy?
I saw the shattered glass in disarray, and I questioned Robert Wagner about that, and says it happened sometime during their travels, just due to the rough seas.
But Wagner changed that story in his 2008 memoir, admitting to breaking the bottle after all, but said it was during an argument with Walken over Natalie's career. Here he is reading from his audiobook.
At one point, I picked up a wine bottle, slammed it on the table, and broke it into pieces. Natalie was already below decks at that point.
Now that I've heard that he's changed his story, I'm a little uncomfortable with it, because at the time I believed him. So I'm not going to change my mind about what happened. His story still shows that she just accidentally drowned.
I looked below, I saw Natalie was doing something with her hair. She was going to go to bed, and she shut the door, and Chris and I were still talking. When I went down below, she wasn't there. The dinghy was gone, and I looked around for her, and I didn't know where she was.
Walken has also said Natalie went to her stateroom while he and Wagner talked. The two men declined to be interviewed by Vanity Fair or 48 Hours, but both have said the most logical explanation is that Natalie got up to secure the dinghy, which they say was banging against the boat.
She slipped on the swim step on the stern and was either stunned or knocked unconscious and rolled into the water. The loose dinghy floated away.
There are great holes in that story. Why wasn't someone called earlier? Why did someone hear screaming in the water if in fact she's unconscious? Because it didn't happen that way, Davern told 48 Hours.
I believe that Robert Wagner was with her up until the moment she went into the water.
That's like saying Robert Wagner pushed her overboard. That's a murder investigation. But I don't believe him.
That may be, but detectives Lowe and Hernandez want to hear what Dennis Davern has to say. In July, they flew him almost 5,000 miles, all the way to Hawaii, to probe his damning allegations, on the very boat where it all took place.
We're going to go where we need to go and talk to who we need to talk to and look at the evidence we need to look at. Our investigation will take us where it takes us.
Less than a month after reopening the case, homicide detectives Lowe and Hernandez flew to Hawaii, where the Splendor, now owned by Ron Nelson, is docked.
The police are here for about 5 hours so they can analyze where people were at certain times and what actually happened.
Due to the ongoing investigation,
you can't video that.
The detectives aren't talking to the media. But 48 Hours was in Hawaii, shooting, as they measured, photographed, and tested the various accounts, including Wagner's banging dinghy theory.
I think if there weren't serious suspicions, there wouldn't have been a reopening of the case, nor would it have been as substantive and sweeping as it is.
Natalie Wood biographer Suzanne Finstead shared her extensive archive with the detectives.
I have boxes of research materials that really can't be found anywhere else.
It took him a really long time.
I have tapes of all the interviews that I've conducted.
Some of those tapes could be of vital importance to the investigation if, and that's a big if, the detectives determine there's any truth to them. And if so, will they hold up in court?
One of the things he told me was that there was a fight going on like you wouldn't believe. And
that's the voice of the woman who was dating Dennis Davern at the time of Natalie's drowning. She spoke to Suzanne Finstead in 2001 about a cryptic call, she says, she got from Davern shortly after Natalie Wood died.
And he just said, don't believe anything that you see in print. You know, what you're going to be seeing about this, you know, it's all a lie.
Davern's former girlfriend declined to speak to us when we tried to verify this story. This next call is from Natalie Wood's younger sister, Lana.
Dennis was obviously drinking, right? Dennis was not a close friend, and I don't know why he decided to call me.
Lana Wood is describing a stunning phone call she says she got from Dennis Davern in 1992, more than a decade after her sister's death. She tells Finstead that Davern told her he saw what happened to her sister.
It appeared to him as though RJ shoved her away. She went overboard. Dennis panicked and RJ said, leave her there, teach her a lesson. Said he was very panicky, that he was sitting and RJ just kept drinking. And he'd say, come on, let's get her. And he said RJ was in, you know, such a foul mood at that point that he then shut up and was waiting for what you know, when are they going to go to her rescue, until all the sound stopped.
Lana Wood goes on to say Davern didn't think Wagner meant for Natalie to die.
I mean, even if he did not kill her, which is why I understand Guy saying it was, you know, that it was an accident. No, he didn't mean for her to drown, but he didn't run to her aid.
Lana Wood has never told this story publicly, before or since that we could find. We tried to verify this account with Wood and Davern, but neither would speak to us. The Sheriff's Department has no comment on the tapes or details about their investigation.
The Natalie Wood investigation is open, active, and ongoing. And because of those factors, I cannot comment any further.
Sorting out the truth after all these years is no easy task. Detectives made a second trip to the Splendor in July, this time taking Davern.
Yeah, this is really amazing to see again.
Only Davern and the investigators know what was said, or what it might mean to a case in which the statute of limitations has run out on every charge, except murder.
Is Robert Wagner a suspect?
No.
That was almost a year ago, and police still have not named a suspect. In a written statement when the case was reopened, the Wagner family said they support the investigation and trust the detectives will judge the new information on the credibility of the sources.
They don't engage in investigations for theatrics. They engage in investigations to solve mysteries.
LA County Homicide won't say how long it will take to complete its work. But after years of shifting stories and the dimming of memory, the sea may finally release some of its secrets about the night Natalie Wood died.
He's got his hand up like this. I raised the knife, and he walks right into it. And he said, "My God, what have you done?"
April 4th, 1958. Rain pelted against the elegant white colonial mansion that movie star Lana Turner had just rented.
What made you think to do the story when you did it?
Well, first of all, she's one of my favorite movie stars. She was glamorous, a sex symbol. She experienced everything. Her life was like a soap opera.
I'm Cheryl Crane. I'm the daughter of Lana Turner, who was Hollywood's biggest blonde star in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. My mother and I both had an extraordinary life and quite a story in itself.
This is a lovely way to spend an afternoon driving through Beverly Hills. It's quite a colorful neighborhood. It looks calm and peaceful, except when it's not. My name is George Schlatter. I'm a producer, a director, a writer, probably most well known for Rowan Martin's Laugh-In, which I created. I just hope you guys are nice to Lana because she was a very nice lady.
You know I can't stay mad at anybody very long.
My mother's first movie, called They Won't Forget, one of the main scenes was her walking down the street in a sweater and skirt, and she bounces. There became the legend, the Sweater Girl.
The aura of what was in there was a very promiscuous, naughty child.
The Postman Rings Twice may have been her most memorable movie.
You won't find anything cheap around here.
It really solidified her image as this incredible sex symbol.
The temperature rose when Lana walked into a room. She was a lady, but she was a rascal, you know.
My mother loved love. My mother loved romance and the Hollywood ending.
A gent like you can do anything to a gal like me.
She never quite achieved it.
What she really loved were men. By the time she died, she was married 7, 8 times.
Wow. Oh, my father was great. My dad's name was Stephen Crane.
Steve Crane was a nice, simple guy who built this restaurant called the Luau in Beverly Hills, and it was like a watering hole for all of the stars.
He and my mother continued to have, after their divorce, a good relationship together.
And then suddenly, in 1957, there was this handsome, hunky guy saying, "I'm Johnny Steele, and I've always wanted to meet you."
He was a Marine. He was a tough guy.
Definitely her type, dark, handsome.
Wasn't he also kind of legendarily endowed?
Well, I don't have to say that on television,
Oh,
or can
sorry.
I? But yes, he was.
She didn't know until after she was involved with him that his name was not John Steele, it was John Stompanato.
Johnny Stompanato was originally from Woodstock, Illinois.
Very small, about 90 miles northwest of Chicago. My name is John Ibrahim, and my father was John Stompanato. Heard about California, and wow, that's the place to go. So he just up and left.
He was Mickey Cohen's bodyguard.
Right.
Mickey Cohen was a member of the LA Mafia who had taken over for Bugsy Siegel when Bugsy Siegel was murdered.
She had no idea of what he did or who he was, other than he was attractive.
Well, he must have thought he hit the jackpot.
She really was crazy about Johnny Stompanato. However, she did not really want to be seen with him that much.
When the gentleman of the moment started getting too pushy is when my mother ended it.
He would not take rejection. I mean, he said, if I leave you, I will leave you, but I will cut your face up.
He made gangster threats. You can't get away from me. You'll never get away from me.
It's too late.
Look, Connie, if I would...
I said it's too late. I made my choice.
It was 1958. She'd been nominated for an Academy Award for Peyton Place.
It's Movieland's big night.
She got dressed up in this beautiful skin-tight dress with diamonds.
And Johnny Stompanato wanted to go with Lana.
Feather in his cap or whatever.
And Lana said no. She refused to let Johnny Stompanato go with her to the Academy Award.
She invited my grandmother and I to be her escorts. I had just turned 14.
So it was the Pantages Theater, and every star turned out.
And I noticed something I had never seen before with my mother. Her hands were trembling. She was terrified of John. He was so angry with her.
And up here is the house where it all happened. 730 Bedford, right on the corner.
It was raining, and Johnny Stompanato came to the house. Get out, I don't want to see you anymore. And that's when they started having this terrible, terrible argument.
I could hear voices, but I couldn't hear what was going on. So I got up. I went down the hall to her bedroom door, and I stood there and I listened. He was making threats. I'll cut your face. I'll kill your mother. I'll kill your daughter. You'll never work in this town again, and you can't throw me out. You can't get rid of me.
At that point, Cheryl ran down the stairs and went into the kitchen.
There's a knife on the counter. I picked it up, ran back up the stairs. Her door suddenly flies open. I see John coming toward me. He's got his hand up like this. I raised the knife, and he walks right into it. And he looked at me, and he said, "My God, Cheryl, what have you done?"
And that was it. He was dead on the floor.
It was the famous photograph
Yeah, the
of him
famous
sprawled out.
No blood at all.
He, John Stompanato, walked in to the knife I was holding.
He walks into the knife. No. It's not a likely story.
I picked up the phone and called my father. You called the people that would surround you and protect you.
The saying was, "Get me Giesler." Jerry Giesler was a brilliant criminal defense attorney. And he arrived and he said, "Everybody stay cool, stay calm, and shut the bleep up."
For an hour and a half, they didn't call the police, they didn't call the ambulance, they didn't call anyone. They had to get their story straight.
And then the police came.
So I was charged as an adult with murder.
It was the biggest scandal that had ever happened in Hollywood.
I was terrified. There was a coroner's inquest. My mother testified.
I said, don't ever touch me again.
She was sort of famously wept on the witness stand.
They said it was the best performance she'd ever given.
I'm absolutely finished. This is the end. And I want you to get out.
She could have got a Academy Award for that when she testified. It was all lies.
She was not acting. She was terrified. I know my mother. She was fighting for her child. The jury came back with a verdict of justifiable homicide.
Many friends of Stampanato's couldn't believe that a young girl could stab a guy who was strong and muscular. He's a big guy, and they were skeptical.
I killed John Stampanato, and I didn't do it to cover it up from my mother.
The other story is that Lana had the knife in the room, and Lana did it. And they said to Cheryl, help your mother, because Cheryl could not go to jail because she was 14 years old. They all thought it would be better for Lana if it was Cheryl.
What mother would do this to her child, to make her child live through her life, knowing that she's killed somebody? Not my mother, not the woman I know.
I don't disagree with Cheryl because she was there, and she's a respectable, bright, trustworthy lady. But I always thought that it might have been Lana.
Years later, drunken evening with Eric Root, a friend, she supposedly said that she had done it.
My name is Eric Root. I have been hairdresser to the stars.
Hello, Raquel Welch.
My closest star was Lana Turner. Lana Turner told me that she killed Stampanato. And if I die before you, I want you to tell the world.
Don't lie about a woman who's my mother that I am so proud of, and don't lie about me.
I thought I was doing Cheryl a favor.
I do believe that Cheryl did it.
Yes?
I do. Yes, I do.
Is there any credible evidence that she didn't?
Not to my mind, no.
Yeah.
No.
So what finally happened to Lana Turner?
Well, she died hideously of cancer when she was 75.
How are you?
I heard that Cheryl Crane was writing murder mysteries now.
Cheryl Crane has just finished her first murder mystery. It's called The Bad Always Die Twice, which is quite a title.
Art imitating life.
Yes, art imitating life indeed.
I love this story. I love this story. This story is about what Hollywood is about. It's about mystery. It's about sex. It's about fights, about arguing. And about love.
Oh, Mark, never let me go.
Never. It's what the town is built on. It's what the industry is built on. That's what Lana was. She represented the mystery, the love, the passion that is Hollywood.
What are you going to do with the rest of your life?
Live it? What else is there to do with it?
This woman called up and befriended over the telephone Robert De Niro, Eric Clapton. One of the biggest names was Billy Joel.
Guys are suckers for this kind of thing.
Miranda Grosvenor was a silky phantom who told men she was beautiful and blonde. Many men believed her. At least a few actually fell in love with her. The most memorable story I've ever done, seriously, in 30 years, was this story about this woman who called herself Miranda Grosvenor. And the story was, in essence, that during the 80s, the 70s, and even into the 90s, this woman was known to have called up and befriended over the telephone, cold calling, literally dozens of major Hollywood actors, directors, rock stars, even politicians. Robert De Niro, Eric Clapton, Peter Gabriel, Ted Kennedy, Rush Limbaugh, Art Garfunkel, Bono of U2. And
she
it
liked
just,
classic rock.
Well, you know, the producer Quincy Jones. I remember when I first heard this story, I thought it's doubtful that it's true. This was a story unique to men. One guy would say, "You won't believe this woman I'm talking to." And the other guy would say, "Her name isn't Miranda, is it?" Come on, this must have been about sex. This must have been dirty talk. This must have been for money. People always thought she must have some leverage on these famous people to get them to talk to her. There was none. Mostly, it was as simple as, if you want to talk, I'll listen. One of the biggest names was Billy Joel. Not only had he talked with this woman for a period of years, but he came to view her as something of a muse. During the making of Uptown Girl, he was calling Miranda and playing these songs for her that she would tape on her answering machine. Finally, I found somebody who'd done what I had to do, which was the detective work. Do you remember from so many movies on Saturday Night Live, this great screenwriter, Buck Henry?
Sure.
Oh, sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, Buck Henry.
You think you could break a 20? I was sitting home, it was like 2 in the morning, I was pretending to write something, and the phone rang, and what sounded like an overseas operator asked me who I was and did I know somebody. It was totally confusing. Along with the overseas operator voice, of course there was no overseas operator, was the Miranda Grosvenor voice. I bought it because I was intrigued by what was happening. She sounded fabulous. She sounded like a young girl, very kind of, you know, kicky and mischievous and flirtatious.
A funny thing happened with Buck Henry. He'd been talking with her for a period of weeks, perhaps months, when she, at his request, sent him a picture.
Bad move. A friend of mine in New York, I showed the picture to, said, "Oh, I know who that is. That's so-and-so. It's an American model."
And at that moment, Buck said, "This woman's a fraud." The great question of all this is, why on earth were men like Billy Joel and Peter Gabriel and Quincy Jones talking to this woman on the telephone?
Guys are suckers for this kind of thing. I mean, hey, we marry them sometimes.
There were men here who will tell you they fell in love with her. And I'm pretty sure it was Buck who said, call Richard Perry. Now, Richard Perry is a legend in music circles.
So maybe like a dum, 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 be 5 dums and a dum, be doobie.
I've been a music producer for 46 years. Rod Stewart, Ray Charles, Carly Simon, Ringo Starr, the Pointer Sisters, the Temptations, Diana Ross.
He was one of a number of men that I talked to who had essentially gotten to the point where they were building their lives around appointment phone calls with this woman.
I used to come home from working in the recording studio. I would pour myself a glass of wine and have dinner in front of the speakerphone with Miranda, and we'd talk for hours.
And this went on for weeks and months.
I wasn't going to let it go any further without meeting her. So I demanded that she come to New York.
And Richard obviously suspects what anyone hearing us talk is thinking, and that is, this woman is not a luggy, blonde, 23-year-old model.
I was anxious, especially when I met her in her hotel room, and she wanted all the lights to be out.
He opens the door, it's in darkness.
Right.
There's someone sitting on the bed.
I mean, it was clear that she was not the person that she was supposed to be.
And while he never forgot about her, he stopped the relationship. It was after I heard Richard's story that I realized this person actually exists. There is a person out there who's talking to Johnny Carson, to Quincy Jones, to Billy Joel, to all these people, and then she's a regular person. For the first time since I tracked her down, the real Miranda Grosvenor agreed to speak to me over the phone, with the understanding that I not reveal the name she is now using, her location, or where she now works. Hello?
Hi, Brian. It's Miranda. I think every man should hear that once in his life.
It was like I'd pull back the curtain, and there was Wizard of Oz exactly as she was supposed to be. Who was or who is Miranda?
Just, you know, your girl next door who had an extreme interest and curiosity in people and found a wonderful way to find out exactly who they were. When I lived in New York, I was involved in a social situation where I met a lot of people that were celebrities. Jim Morrison was my friend, Bob Dylan. And when I moved out of Manhattan, I missed that. And so people that I would like to sit next to and have a good dinner time conversation with, I just called on the telephone. I never ever stalked anyone. I never bothered them. It's real important to me that everyone knows that it wasn't intrusive. It was mutual. It was real. We made a connection. Often, too, people, I find, the more popular they are, the bigger they are isolated, and they let very few people into their lives.
You could say many things about Miranda Grosvenor, but crass or unlettered or uneducated would never come up in a sentence. This was a woman who was believably sophisticated because she was genuinely sophisticated.
Strangely enough, a lot of people, once they found out the truth, wanted to continue the relationship. And I had a lot of trouble with that because I felt like the shift in power made me very uncomfortable. And I regret that now because I probably could have developed some really good, strong relationships through that.
Sometimes I almost wish I'd never known the truth.
Why is that?
Sometimes I almost wish that I had gotten to the point where I knew she was real, but I never found her. Not because there's anything disconcerting or depressing or downbeat about the real Miranda Grosvenor. It's just that, like so many myths, the beauty of it is in the mystery of it.